Hi, this is Mike, Family DIY TV, and that's a fireplace. You know what a fireplace needs? Fireplace needs firewood. You know what firewood needs? A firewood needs a cabinet. Yeah, and that's what we got here. This is my firewood cabinet. I built this myself with the inspiration of Anna White. She actually came up with the original design. Her design's a little bit bigger, a little bit different, has a different door on it. My door is a little bit different. They come up from the top except from instead from the side. I like her design. I like my design a little bit better, but not taking anything away from her. She is great. I added a little bit of flare on the back. Normally you don't see that because it's filled up to the top with firewood. But in this video, I'm going to show you how I went about building this. I very highly underestimated the amount of time it was going to take me to build this, but I think at the end it doesn't matter. This is still came out real nice, still a nice product, and I'm going to show you how to build it. So sit down, grab some popcorn, and get ready to see how to build a wood cabinet. Okay, so it's winter, so we're down in the basement actually working in here. I wanted to do this in the garage or outside, but we're gonna have to work in the basement. So what have we done so far? So we've made our plans, we know our sizes. I'll put the size of mine down below and a material cut list down below in the description. I'll also put a link to Anna White's video. This is where I got the inspiration for this. She actually has a great website as well with all the plans. I'll put a link to that down below. She's awesome. Check her out on YouTube. The only specialty tool here we're going to use is the Craig jig. I would really recommend you pick yourself one up if you need one. I'll put it down below. If you've seen in my other videos, I use this a lot. It's just something you should have as a DIYer. If you don't, I'll have another option for you and we'll go through that later. Okay, so at this point, we got all of our tools. We're not doing anything crazy. We just, like I said, really only special tool is the Craig. Everything else is drills and saws and stuff like that. We went to the store, we sourced all of our material, brought home the material yesterday. I clamped it up to make sure it doesn't twist up. Okay. So what we're gonna do is today, we're gonna build the first few assemblies. All right, let them all dry, because I'm gonna glue them and screw them. And I also don't have time to do this all at one time. And then you're gonna see the process of me building all the assemblies, putting it all together, painting it, staining it, and getting it ready to go. So let's do this. Okay, so I'm gonna start for no particular reason with the two inside frames. This is what it sort of looks like, this little inside frame. This is gonna be the base on the bottom, and it's also gonna be at the top, okay? It's basically two rectangles, which are the same exact size. What I do, I just got done cutting the 8 pieces. So these pieces basically right here. It's supposed to be 38 by 17 and a half, okay? So what I did was I measured the first one. So for example, this one I measured at 38 inches. And then I used this one to mark all my other ones. Really, I don't care at this point if they're 38 and an eighth or an eighth shorter than 38. All I care is that they are all the same length. So what I'm doing is lining them up and I'm checking to make sure that they're all the same length. All right, so I brought you down here. So we're gonna start off the screws on the bottom here. So what I want to do is kind of show you a trick that's gonna avoid this from splitting. If you just actually put this in there and put your drill in reverse for a little bit. And then run it in, that'll avoid any kind of splitting. All right, so we're gonna move on to the legs, like I said. So what I decided to use is pre-primed pine. And I'm using 1x4s and 1x3s. So you're gonna see why in a second. So basically what I need to do is cut everything, and I have it here. I don't expect you to see that, but I need to cut everything at 34 and a half. Now, like I said earlier, I'm gonna cut the first one at 34 and a half as close as I can get it. Of course, it'll probably be right on, I'm hoping. Then I'm just gonna cut all the other ones the same exact length. So before I cut this, I'm gonna ask a little favor. Can you please hit that subscribe button? I'm not sure if this is the first video you've seen of mine, but if it's not, I appreciate your support. My channel is really around family DIY stuff. So DIY stuff that you do around your house with your family. So please subscribe, please like this video, and I'm gonna get on to cutting the legs. All right, so here are the legs completed. Okay, these are the pocket holes. All right, that I use to attach these two pieces. Now, if you don't have a Craig jig, what you could do is you could use something along the lines of these screws here. These are trim screws. So the head of the screw is actually super small, okay? And what you could do, and we are gonna use these later on in a different part, is you could have run this through this board this way, all right? And you could have buried this face into this wood, right? So it would have been something along the lines of like that. And then what you do is come over with wood putty and you fill that later, okay? So you could fill all those holes. You're gonna have to sand this anyway, so you fill those up, sand it, and this is gonna be painted, so it wouldn't matter. You would never see it. You wouldn't even know they're there. And be a pretty strong, you wanna also glue it like I did here. You can see there's some extra glue on there. I'll sand it off later. All right, so that's the leg. All right, so now you can see we got the assemblies all primed up. We have the legs also primed. They've been sanded nice and smooth, okay? You can't even see that there's a transition there. They look like one continuous piece. These have also been sanded with a belt sander and orbital sander. I primed them, and then in between the prime coats, I actually sanded it with 300 grit sandpaper after doing all the other sanding, okay? The reason why you want to sand is the first time you do a primer coat on this, the grain is going to swell just a little bit, and you're actually going to be able to feel that. So you want to sand that off, prime again, sand it again. At this point, you probably don't need to sand anymore, but I'm going to. I'm now going to put this together, and then I'm going to do my first coat of paint. In between my coats, I'm going to give it just a light sanding, like 300 grit, 400 grit sandpaper. Okay, so now we're gonna get on to putting this thing together. We got our plywood source. This is 1/4 inch plywood. Okay, so what I did was I actually cut an angle on this. You can see it. It's just a 45-degree angle. And the idea of that is this is going to be, for example, if this is the top portion and you're looking down on it, it's gonna give it a little, it's not gonna be as abrupt piece. You're not going to see it as much. And also, if you were to rub your hand against it by mistake, you wouldn't, get a splinter. Okay. So now we're going to move on to actually putting this together, putting the plywood on here, and then we're going to put the legs on. All right. So let's do it. Okay, so here we're starting to build the countertop. So this is just 2x4s cut in a 45-degree angle, and we're using pocket hole screws to attach it together. So glues and screws. Okay, so the doors were made out of reclaimed 1x3s, and these 1x3s were cut in a herringbone design, and they were actually glued onto a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. That's what you can see here. This is the white part. Okay, then once we did that, we wood filled everything using a colored wood filler. Then we moved on to sanding it all smooth to remove the old stain and to get this ready for the new stain. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're attaching a cleat to the countertop. And what we're going to use this cleat for is to attach the countertop to the actual piece of furniture. So here we're attaching the cleat to the countertop, and then we're going to run holes through the side, and we'll use those holes through the side to run screws to eventually then connect the countertop cleats to the actual piece of furniture. Okay, so now what we're doing here is we're attempting to make a custom shim because you want the doors to be centered in the opening, but the doors were actually a little bit thinner than the actual width of the countertop. So what I'm doing here is I'm running a straight edge, and then I'm going to take paper and I'm going to make myself like a custom shim. And then what I'm able to do with this is I'm able to turn the whole assembly over, and that will have keep my doors nice and flush with the top of the countertop. And that'll also allow me to then center it, and then allow me to easily attach the hinges on the other side, which you'll see that will be the next step. But here, all we're doing is we're making basically a custom shim out of pieces of paper. So that's the video. I hope you liked the video. I hope this gave you an idea. I hope you go out and build your own. And if you do, please let me know down below. Maybe leave me a picture or something like that so I can see what you guys did with yours. I think this is a pretty configurable design. That's why I liked it. I want to thank Anna White for her inspiration. Again, I'll link to her video down below. And I please ask you, hey, why don't you give me a subscription? Why don't you give me a like? And I'm Mike from Family DIY TV.